Hi, it's Neil McGovern here. This is a short video today about vibrato. So vibrato is that oscillation in the sound, in the pitch of your note. And on saxophone, unlike on some other woodwind instruments where they use diaphragm vibrato, a sort of ha 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 ha, just sort of almost like a pulsing in dynamic, what we're going to do on saxophone is use more of the lip and jaw vibrato. You might find you're struggling a little bit to do this at first. So what I suggest you do is play a high A, and then you're going to take your right hand finger. So we've chosen a left hand fingering, so we've got the right hand totally free. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our right hand finger and we're just going to pull down on our chin and maybe the lip a little bit to just try and release the pressure a little bit so that you can achieve the vibrato that way. Have a listen. Here's a straight note. No vibrato. And now I'm going to manually put the vibrato in with my finger. Okay, so this is a way to get the results without actually doing the technique properly. Obviously we can't use our finger, that's a bit ridiculous, but it at least gets you used to the feeling of it. And then after a time, hopefully, you can do it without. And it's just this oscillation here, this movement in the lower lip and the jaw. It's like saying wah, 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 wah. Or yeah, 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 something like that. But the movement up and down. One thing to think about, if this is your note, what's really happening actually, I think, with vibrato is the pitch is mostly lowering like this in little dips below the sound. Yeah, 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 if this is your actual in-tune note here. But what's the best way to think about it is of the vibrato going up and then down and then up and then down and up and down. So it's going, imagine that it's going above the pitch because you want the vibrato to be part of the sound. You don't want it to just be sort of hanging underneath, making a sort of buzzy or nasal sound. So try and think of the vibrato as part of your tone when you're employing it. And you should be judicious about when you employ it. You don't want to just have it on all the time, probably. I mean, it's unlikely that you want to be having, in say, a semiquaver passage, having a real wobble there. It doesn't immediately spring to mind many contexts where that would be what you want musically, in classical, in jazz, in any kind of music really. So think about how you're employing vibrato. Obviously you want to build off a foundation of a really great sound, so make sure that you are doing things correctly and that you're sort of happy with your actual fundamental tone, and tuning is important too there, of course. And then you can sort of add in the vibrato as well. But it's lovely to be able to play a passage and just enjoy it with no vibrato, and then just maybe a little bit on one note at the end, possibly not even the whole note, just maybe on the tail end of a note. Every piece, every context is going to be a little bit different for how you use it, but really listen. And also one essential thing to do really is listen. So you want to be listening to other saxophone players. You want to be listening to other woodwind players. String players, of course, it's brilliant because you can see it. It's a visual technique, very visible technique on string instruments, of course, so you can see it. But listen to singers as well, not visual there, but often very inspiring. And I think singers think about vibrato very deeply often, good singers. So listen widely and try and come to something that you're happy with. I have heard people say that with vibrato you should try and practice it with a metronome. So, put it on 80 or something and then try and play semiquavers. I've always found that to be a little bit unmusical and not particularly useful. If you're finding it's a bit of a struggle to control it, a lot of people get quite a sort of shake in the sound, in the vibrato. It's just this kind of quiver rather than a sort of a nice added colour. and they're not very satisfied with it. Maybe if that's your situation, you're not quite pleased with what's going on, try doing it with a metronome, try doing it at some different speeds. I always recommend the metronome for pretty much everything you're practicing, whether it's scales or pieces or whatever really, but in this case, I generally wouldn't do it unless, like I say, you're having a bit of trouble getting control. It's interesting to emulate different types of vibrato. I mean, if you go back and listen to, on the classical side of saxophone, like listen to Marcel Mule, you've got this quite fast and very obvious vibrato there. And if you listen to early jazz people, who would be like Sidney Bechet, for just to take one example, it's terminal. You really, really hear it very, very clearly. And it sounds a little bit funny as well to our modern ears. And it's not perhaps how most people play today. Although I have heard some of the I've heard it said that some of the recordings of Marcel Mule are not necessarily representative of what he actually sounded like in person, which is quite possible. We're not too sure. But yeah, do listen widely and try and emulate your favorite players and any sort of style that you think, oh yeah, that's what I want to sound like, whether it's in a cool jazz thing or a sort of early 20th century classical, whatever it is. Try and emulate that as much as possible on the sax. And hopefully that's helpful for you. Keep trying. It does take some time to settle on exactly the kind of vibrato that you want and something that you're actually satisfied with. But persevere with it, and over time you can really use it. One thing just finally to think about with vibrato is that it does increase the volume of your playing. So if you're playing mezzo forte, hopefully this will be obvious on this recording, and then I add vibrato in, I'm very much trying not to make it louder there, but it does have this tendency to sort of make the sound a bit more expansive. Whether it's actually louder or not, I'd have to check, but I think that the sensation certainly is that it's louder and it carries and sort of projects a little bit more. You may need vibrato more in certain kinds of spaces and in different ensembles, different contexts. But have an experiment, see how you get on, and let me know if you need any help.